So, The Hitchhiker's Guide to DSM. And I think after this you should all read the books, by the way. The first rule of The Hitchhiker's Guide is wear a towel and don't panic. I didn't follow that rule this morning. So in the beginning, the universe was created, because that's how we start. This made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a very bad move. And so they created the supercomputer to answer the question of the universe, life, and everything. The most intelligent people on the supercomputer were obviously mice. We're only the third most intelligent. And fortunately, the Hitchhiker's Guide decided that the supercomputer was mostly harmless. And then things went wrong. And there was a Vogan construction fleet that needed to build a hypergalactic highway. And other things went horribly wrong. Kind of not so unsurprisingly wrong. I love Douglas Adams. But we know what to do, right? We've all seen this curve. Energy efficiency and demand-side management. Solution to everything. Well, a lot of things. So what's the problem? Sorry, I'm being a little bit US-centric here, but the graphs pretty much say it all. So this down there is the national defense spending on research. The yellow one's health, which is good. Then we got space, which is the green one. And energy is that tiny little teal one there. And then when we see what happened in 1979 as opposed to 40 years later, you can see that the total bunch of research spending has also reduced quite significantly. And then if you listen to the IEA, the red one is what we spend, and this is what we're supposed to spend on research, energy research. And then of course, and Skip will tell you that, most of the energy efficiency potential is going unrealized. 2/3 of the economic potential, in fact. And then, of course, you may as well just say, well, it's all waste, so we don't really need any more R&D. But actually, what researchers will say, it's the fault of the bureaucrats, the policymakers who don't spend enough money on research. I'm saying it's not always the fault of the bureaucrats. The problem is not just enough money on technology research, because I think we already have most of the energy efficient technologies that we need to do good DSM. We can see that the technical potential is huge. We know what it is. We even see that the economic potential, even only half of the technical potential, is still quite large. What's achievable is a hell of a lot less. And the problem here, and you won't be able to see that, but this is the impact from, I think it is energy efficiency regulations in the US. And that bit there, 87%, says benefits from correcting consumer irrationality. Who really is the problem? My countryman, the person who thinks that you can save the world by fitting hydrogen on a Hummer. His problem was that he couldn't once drive it. He only could drive it once because the only hydrogen fuel station was too far away for the reach of the Hummer, and he ran out of gas. So what he did is he put vegetable oil in his Hummer. It's all technical solutions. But yeah, these are the kind of technical solutions that usually bring us behavior changes to drink. And so, shameless plug, we have a solution. This is Ruth, my co-operating agent in the Netherlands, and I'm going to tell you the story of our task. So once upon a time, on a hot Athens night, two youngish ladies who were working on behavior change, one in theory and one in practice, met each other at a workshop. Every day for 3 days, they chatted and laughed and realized they had a lot in common, like their grand passion for behavior change and both being ninjas. But one day, they realized that they had the opportunity to make the dream collaboration a reality. Because of that, they wrote a proposal to start Task 24 and presented it to the IEA DSM. who you have in this room. But then it became obvious that it took a lot of lobbying and hard work just to talk countries into joining, signing contracts and paying their invoices. It's a plug for paying your invoices, EXCO members. Because of that, they started the task a little bit later than planned, but a lot of countries and over 200 behaviour change experts from around the world joined up along the way. So finally, Task 24 is healthy and happy, working hard on translating theory into practice. And ever since then, the two ladies travelled the world, telling stories, creating monsters, one of them is lying over there, and turning slowly into babelfish. They hope to continue this important work for another 3 years to get the Task 24 extension, as there is lots left to do. That was another shameless plug for my EXCO, by the way. And then they lived happily ever after, changing the behaviour of the behaviour changes to help them better change behaviours, or something. That's the story of our task. It has chapters, or we call them subtasks. It has an expert platform with lots of cool stuff on it, including the stories that we hear today are going to be on there. Here is the people from around the world that have joined the expert platform, and I'm Austrian, so I like colouring in maps. The very first workshop that we did was at Oxford University, and I was a hell of a lot more nervous even than today. It was a 2-day workshop. It was funded by UKirk Meeting Place. They spent a lot of money on it, and a lot of really important people in the behaviour change field came from all the different disciplines, all the top UK ones, and a whole lot from around the world. We had about 20 countries there. And it was pretty difficult, to say the least. They were mostly social scientists. Social scientists like to be very critical. They like to fling the proverbial poo at each other and their disciplines, and it became very clear that we were actually talking in a lot of different languages, and we didn't really understand each other, and it was very easy to get caught up in all the reasons why the other person's language wasn't clear enough, or wasn't good enough, or wasn't precise enough, or wasn't really the answer. And so we had one wonderful person who became our babelfish. She was from the community, and she worked with a lot of different communities to actually implement energy efficiency in practice. And she listened to the social scientists and the policymakers flinging things at each other for 1.5 days, and she finally spoke up. And she started telling a story. And then she started saying about how she managed to do a lot of this community work, which is a lot more difficult than wrangling scientists, into doing really cool things by telling their stories and by listening to them. And so what we found at the workshop is that the translation tool that works really well, that cuts through the jargon and the silos and the different disciplines and the giant chasms that there are between policymakers and researchers and the industry and the intermediaries and the third sector, who all have the different mandates and restrictions, is telling stories. And that's what we're here to do today. So what we have is, with the stories of our energy experts, and you're going to hear some of those stories later, because what we found is, when you get people to tell their own energy story, they actually manage to, in a 2-minute discussion or interview, to say more than we managed to say in our 160-page monster full of social science language. It just makes sense. We also tell the country stories, and you're going to hear the South African story later, which is going to be really interesting. We created monsters, 160-page social science reports. They're counting, because that's where we collect all of our case studies. And in the monster, we have different types of stories. So energy efficiency generally is about being a hero story. We like to be the heroes, and we have the hero solution. We have hero technology, silver bullet technology. What happens is that most of those hero stories often turn into learning stories, because it usually doesn't work out as well as we'd like. No matter how clever we think we are with our programs and policies and labels and regulations and incentives, they usually don't save as much energy because of that large amount of irrationality that happens in people. You'll hear from at least one of us today, a love story, because energy efficiency can be about a love story, or the social human side. There are, of course, always some ninja stories, where things happen unexpectedly, both good and bad. And unfortunately, we also have some horror stories. And you'll probably hear at least one of them today as well. Then, of course, we have country stories. We like to pit ourselves against the wallabies. We have sector stories, and I know that some of you are going to talk about some sectoral stories today. And then, of course, what is the answer? The answer to life, the universe, and everything. So any one of you who's read Hitchhiker's Guide knows, when you put it into, or Google as well, the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. Some wits even found that Google is actually 42, and it truly is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. But we know better. This is the answer to life, the universe, our universe, and our everything anyway. But these graphs, as fancy as they are, and as long as they've been around, and as often as all of us have seen them and shown them to people, have still not managed to bridge this wide gap, and why we regard energy efficiency as the greatest market value of all time, still to this day. So this is what's missing. And this is what all of us are going to have to become. Babelfish. All of us have to become translating tools to make our great story the reality, and to make so that it makes sense to the people that we're trying to change, and the people that we're trying to stop their addiction to the energy, well, to life, because we need energy for living comfortably, healthily, sustainably as well. But then, of course, Douglas Adams said it best. Thank you.